So, Jurgen Klopp has left Liverpool, and in real life, Arne Slot has the unenviable task of replacing him. But for a 5-season rebuild, I'm taking over Liverpool to see how I can get on attempting to replace Klopp. Klopp joined Liverpool in October of 2015, and in the time he was at the club, played 491 games, winning 299 of them, for just under a 61% win record. In his time at the club, Liverpool won the Premier League once, the FA Cup once, the League Cup twice, the Community Shield once, the Champions League once, the UEFA Super Cup once, and the FIFA Club World Cup once, as well as being runners-up in the League Cup once, the Champions League twice, and the Europa League in his very first season. The aim for the rebuild is to win at least one Champions League and to hopefully win more Premier League titles than the one Jurgen Klopp achieved in his time at the club. So without further ado, let's get into the action. So, as we said, we've taken over at Liverpool at the end of the 23-24 season, so the end of the most recent season, as in at the time that Jurgen Klopp left the club. As you can see, the league table is representative of what happened this season. Liverpool finished in third. Obviously, potentially a time of big change. Going into the summer, we've got 64.5 million in the transfer budget, 300,000 in the wage budget, so there's room to bring some players in. So we're at the transfer window at the end of the first summer. We haven't done an awful lot of business in the transfer window. We've not sold anyone, and we've brought in one player. And I think the one thing that Liverpool have lacked is an actual number 9. They've played Jota there, they've played Darwin Núñez there, they've played Cody Gakpo there, but they've not had a regular number 9, regular goal scorer out of any of those players that have played in that position. So we've tried to fix that. We've gone with Victor Gyökeres, signed him from Sporting for 44 million. It's a lot of money considering he only spent one season there, having been in the Championship prior to that. But hopefully he can allow us to push on in this first season and see what we can achieve. Tactically, we're looking at a 4-3-3 with a defensive midfielder dropping back in between the centre half, so allow the fullbacks to push on. Hopefully get the best out of Mo Salah and Luis Diaz in the wide areas. If we pick the best 11, it does put Salah and Diaz wide. Gyökeres just goes straight into the team up front, and other than that, it's probably the team you'd expect from the players that Liverpool have got at this present moment. Looking at the season preview, I mean, not surprised to see Liverpool as third favourites. Man City obviously such a strong squad, and Arsenal having finished second the last 2 seasons, it probably makes sense for them to be second favourites. We have started the season pretty well. Opening day of the season, home against Newcastle, we hammered them 4-0. 2 from Szoboszlai, 1 from Gyökeres, and 1 from Cody Gakpo. We then went away to Arsenal and were 2-0 up just after half time, and then conceded 2 goals. 1 on the hour, a penalty from Bukayo Saka, and then a 97th minute equaliser from Gabriel Jesus. We then beat Man United 3-0 at home. Pretty comfortable performance. Unfortunately, Mo Salah picked up an injury in that game. And then a comfortable 3-0 victory away from home against Wolves. Endo surprisingly being the player that picked up 2 goals there. Unfortunately, Diego Jota picked up a bit of injury in that game as well. But considering the teams we've had to start the season, obviously with Newcastle, Arsenal, Man United, it's a pretty decent start to the season to have 10 points from 4 games. Obviously, we're in the Champions League this season, and it's not the best of draws of fixtures we could have had. So we've got both Real Madrid and Barcelona. Leverkusen could be a tough game, but at least it's at home. And Sporting might be a difficult game to round out the group stage, but it should be a pretty straightforward, hopefully, progression into the knockout stages. So let's go ahead and simulate season 1 and see what happens. So at the end of season 1, and I think largely that was probably a pretty successful first season. We finished second. Somehow neither Man City nor Arsenal beat us to the title. It was Chelsea. We've somehow won the Champions League and we've won the FA Cup as well. So first of all, the Premier League. We've ended up at 84 points. Mo Salah scored 20 goals. Alisson kept 15 clean sheets. It's probably, like, points wise and everything like that, probably what I expected. I did think Man City and Arsenal might finish in front. I mean, we did drop off as soon as we left. We were down to fourth. And then around mid-season, we got back to the top of the table. But then we had a really bad run of games. Drawing against Forest, losing to West Ham, losing to Bournemouth to see us down to fifth. And then we steadily made our way back and ended up finishing in second position. So Champions League in the league phase, we ended up finishing seventh. So we skipped the knockout playoff round. We won 5 games in the league phase. We beat Sporting, Le Havre, Barcelona, Celtic and Bayer Leverkusen. We drew with Salzburg and PSV, which means we got beat by Real Madrid 1-0 as well. Not too bad. Then in the round of 16, we played Salzburg again. Beat them 1-0 in the first leg, 2-0 in the second leg to go through 3-0 in aggregate. Quarter-final, we were drawn against Arsenal. We drew the first leg 1-1. Won the second leg 4-1 to go through 5-2 on aggregate. In the semi-final, we beat PSG 0-0 after the first leg, 3-0 in the second leg. And then the final, 4-0 against Aston Villa. And it was 4-0 by half-time as well. 2 goals from Luis Diaz, 2 goals from Mo Salah. Salah squaring it for Luis Diaz to open scoring. A Salah penalty for the second. Luis Diaz drifting across the defence to lash home for the third. And then Luis Diaz down the outside, gets into the box, pulls it back for Mo Salah to make it 4-0. And 4-0 up at half-time was enough to see us win the trophy. The Carabao Cup in the third round, we beat Crystal Palace. We then knocked out West Brom in the fourth round before Chelsea knocked us out 1-0 in the quarter-final before they got beat in the final on penalties by Arsenal. And then the FA Cup, comfortable 5-1 victory against Aldershot in round 3. Needed a replay against Bournemouth but won 3-0 in the replay. Then knocked out Bristol City 4-0. Aston Villa 2-0 in the quarter-final. Needed penalties to beat Sheffield United in the semi-final. And then hammered Man City 4-0 in the final. An early goal and then just too strong late on to see to win us the trophy. Now, we did do a bit more work in the transfer window. We had some money left over. So we ended up signing Oyhan Sanset just to add a bit of depth in the centre of midfield, a bit of quality as well. And he's come up big with that opening goal in the FA Cup final. And towards the end of the season, he's played 14 games in the league, 13 games in the Champions League. A lot better actually in the Champions League and the FA Cup than he was in the Premier League from an average rating point of view. But just really starting to build a bit of depth with some younger players in that centre midfield as well. And overall, as we said, that has to be a successful season. 2 cup competitions won, second in the league. Now it's all about pushing on and trying to win that league title. And going into season 2, we've got 126 million in the transfer budget. We've got 302,000 in the wage budget. So hopefully we can strengthen the side a bit. One thing I will say is we are losing Virgil van Dijk. At the end of his contract, he wouldn't sign a new contract, so he's going to Saudi Arabia. So we're going to need some centre halves. Obviously, unsurprisingly, Mo Salah was top of the goal scorers. He actually had the most assists as well. Gyökeres had 19. Nunes and Diaz chipped in with double figures as well. We probably could do with some more goals, or a higher scoring core of players. But I think with Van Dijk being away, the main ask for this summer is certainly going to be signing replacements to play in the centre of defence. So into season 2, and obviously some big outgoings with Van Dijk going at the end of his contract to Al Ittihad. We sold Ibrahima Konate to Newcastle for up to 58 million. Joe Gomez has gone to PSG on a loan deal with a potential permanent deal at the end of it. Diego Jota's gone to Barcelona on a loan deal with a potential permanent deal at the end of it. We were very quick into the transfer market to sign some centre-halves because obviously with Van Dijk going, we needed them. So first up, we picked up Ousmane Diomande, going back to Sporting Lisbon after pinching Gyökeres off them last summer. Just an absolute beast of a centre-half, just so physical, so quick, decent on the ball as well. And we also went to Bayern Munich and added Matthijs de Ligt. Obviously, with Van Dijk and Konate going, I think we're probably looking at Diamande and de Ligt being our central defensive pairing going forward. And then we've also picked up a couple of midfielders. So firstly, Mikel Merino we picked up on a free transfer at the end of his contract with Real Sociedad. Can play defensive midfield, can play in the centre of midfield, at a push, can even play at the back. Although I don't know that I would risk him playing there, but he could do a job there for us. And then for a more attacking midfield side of things, we've gone to Salzburg and signed Moritz Kjærgaard, Danish international, can play in the number 10 role, can play in the centre midfield, can play off the left, at a push, can play through the middle as well. Still just 22, so some plenty of room to grow over the remaining 4 seasons of this rebuild. Tactically, we are considering switching it up a bit. We're considering going for a diamond in midfield and having Mo Salah play through the middle. We've locked in Kjærgaard because I think he needs first team football to kind of develop. And if we go with the best 11, it puts McAllister in that number 10 role. De Ligt and Diamande go straight into the team. Merino goes straight into the best 11. Sanset, obviously who signed in January, straight into that team as well. Looking at the season preview, we've now gone ahead of Arsenal in the bookies odds. We're now second favourite. We've now got 4 players in the Media Dream 11 in Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Matthijs de Ligt and Mo Salah. And so far this season, things have started okay. Community Shields, we lost on penalties to Chelsea, probably one of the worst penalty shootouts I've seen. Then we lost the UEFA Super Cup to Leipzig to a 92nd minute winner. Rather bizarrely played at the St Mary's Stadium. Seems a strange choice. But then as far as the Premier League is concerned, we've started with 3 wins from 3. Firstly, a 2-0 victory at home against Tottenham, followed up by a 2-0 victory away at Burnley, and then a 1-0 victory away at Man City with Mo Salah scoring in the first minute. As far as the Champions League is concerned, again, not the best draw. For the second season in a row, we've been drawn against Real Madrid, Bayer Leverkusen and PSV. We've also been drawn against Milan and Bayern Munich, so plenty of big games to be played in the Champions League this season. But let's go ahead and simulate season 2 and see if we can go one better and win the Premier League. I think looking at that, you have to say that is a massive disappointment, given how promising the first season was. Yeah, not great. And there are some rather alarming statistics here. Like our top goal scorer in the league, Darwin Núñez and Mo Salah both had 11 goals and that's it. So looking at the Premier League, we ended up drawing far too many games. 10 games drawn cost us big time there. But despite not having a goal scorer in the leading goal scorer chart, Alexis McAllister with 13 assists, Alisson with 16 clean sheets. Yet we've dropped down by 5 points. We've dropped down by 2 places in the league to finish 4th. It was going to be unlikely for Man City and Arsenal to have seasons as bad as they did in the first season. We just haven't matched our level. And there was a bit of a dodgy spell in November that convinced us to go away from that diamond formation. And we actually went back to a more 4-2-3-1. So going back to the wide players, which seems to have kind of steadied the ship a bit. As far as the Champions League is concerned, the league phase actually wasn't too much of a problem. We ended up finishing 4th. We won 5 games again, beating PSV, Olympiacos, Shakhtar, Heerenveen and Leverkusen. We drew with Bayern and Real Madrid and lost away at Milan. By finishing 4th, it meant obviously we skipped the knockout playoff round and went into the last 16, where we played Monaco, won the first leg 1-0, won the second leg 2-0 to go through 3-0 on aggregate. And then in the quarterfinals, we ran into Real Madrid. The first leg was 2-2. We lost the second leg 4-2. And we went out 6-4 on aggregate. The Carabao Cup, we had a decent third round win against Portsmouth. We won 6-2. The 4th round, we needed penalties to beat Blackpool. The quarter-final, we beat Birmingham 3-0 away from home. The semi-final, we beat Ipswich 8-2 on aggregate. And then in the final, against Man City, we ended up losing 2-1 after extra time. We took an early lead through Sunset. They equalised inside the last 5 minutes. And then Doku with a goal in injury time at the end of the first half of extra time was enough for them to pick up the League Cup. And then in the FA Cup third round, we started by beating Crystal Palace 4-1. We beat Leicester 3-1 in the fourth round. Ipswich 4-1 in the fifth round. Middlesbrough 3-0 in the quarter-final. Hammered Chelsea 5-2 in the semi-final. And then we seemed to run out of goals in the FA Cup in the final, losing 2-1 to Newcastle. They took the lead, we equalised, and then Isak got the winner about 10 minutes from time. And looking at the stats, we probably shared the goals around a bit more this season, and the players' stats look a bit better than they do when you just look at the league. Darwin Núñez, top scorer, with 22, Salah with 21. Kjærgaard came in and really hit the ground running with 19. Gyökeres only had 14. McAllister with 11 and 18 assists. The signs are there that we can build something. There's just something missing slightly at the moment from this team. But we do have best part of 91 million available in the transfer budget. We've got 204,000 available in the wage budget. So let's see what we can do in season 3. So at the start of season 3, there's been quite a bit of ins and outs. So Joe Gomez completed his move to PSG for 45 million. Diego Jota completed his move to Barcelona for 66 million. Fabio Carvalho's gone out to Wolves. And we've brought in some players to replace them or to try and improve the squad. Firstly, we brought in Lautaro Martinez at the end of his contract with Inter Milan, just again to provide that extra bit of quality at the top end of the pitch. We've also brought in Lazar Samardzic at the end of his contract with Udinese. He can play in the centre of midfield, can play behind the front man. Really good technical, creative player. And then we had a bit of money to spend, and we've gone and splashed a bit of cash on Rodrigo from Real Madrid. 61 million, just quick, direct, good in front of goal from the flanks. We don't have an awful lot of backup for Salah and Diaz, so bringing in someone of that quality. He's only 25 as well. Hopefully we can have a better season this season than we did last season. Tactically, we're sticking with the 4-2-3-1 that we finished last season with. And if you pick the best 11, then Martinez goes straight in the team. Rodrigo goes straight in the team as well. Looking at the season preview, again, second favourites, but it's very close between the top three. It's very close between the top three in the bookies odds. We actually now only have one player in the Media Dream 11, which is Lautaro Martinez, who's only just joined the club. And we've had an okay start to the season. So we started the opening day with a 3-3 draw against Chelsea. It needed a 90th minute equaliser from Szoboszlai. We then went away to Aston Villa and won 3-1, coming from behind to get that victory. We then went away to Man City and got 2 late goals before they were reduced to 10 men to pick up a good victory there. And then we won 2-0 at home against Tottenham before we played Chelsea in the League Cup on deadline day and went out on penalties. A big shining light so far has been Szoboszlai and Sunset in the centre midfield. Those two have really kind of been amongst the goals so far this season. And as far as the Champions League's concerned, yet again, for the third season in a row in the league phase, we've been drawn against Real Madrid. We've got Barcelona back after not having them last season. We've got Atletico Madrid as well. We've got Benfica. But the rest of the games that we've got, we should have enough to finish in the top 8 and make it straight into the last 16. So let's go ahead and simulate season 3 and see if we can have a better season than we did in season 2. So, the end of season 3, we've had a bit of a better Premier League season in that we've finished second, despite the fact we had less points than we did last season. We've still somehow managed to finish second to Chelsea, who've now won 2 out of the last 3 titles. Champions League, on paper, looks exactly the same as it did last season. We went out at the same stage to the same club, and domestic cup competitions seem to have been a bit of a disaster. So, as far as the Premier League's concerned, Martinez had 19 goals for second top scorer. Rodrigo was right up there in terms of assists. Kjærgaard was right up there in terms of the average rating. Just looking at the pass positions though, we were top of the table for such a long period, almost half the season. And then we lost 4-3 at home to Man City, and we could never get back on top after that. Champions League again, we did pretty well in the league phase. We finished 5th. We didn't lose a game. We beat Fenerbahce, we hammered Celtic, we managed to beat Atletico in Madrid, We beat Shakhtar, we beat Maccabi Tel Aviv, and we drew against Benfica, Barcelona, and Real Madrid. In the last 16, we needed penalties to get past Man United, both legs finishing 1-1. And then in the quarter-final, we drew the first leg 2-2, lost the second leg 2-1, and went out 4-3 on aggregate against Real Madrid. We obviously already saw us go out of the Carabao Cup at the start of the season on penalties to Chelsea. And then the FA Cup, in the third round, we hammered Brentford 5-1, but then we got beat 2-0 by Arsenal in the fourth round. And overall, I think probably another disappointing season, slightly better in the Premier League just by where we finished, but obviously Man City finished 6th on 65 points, didn't even qualify for the Champions League. Are they going to be that bad again next season? Because bearing in mind, I think they finished 4th or 5th in the first season and then won the Premier League in the second season. Looking at the stats, Lautaro Martinez has come in, hit the ground running with 27 goals. Salah with 19 and 10 assists. Kjærgaard with 16 and 10 assists. Darwin Núñez still popped up with 14 goals despite being on the bench a lot of the season. Alexis McAllister only started half of the games that he played. He had 13 goals. We got 15 assists from Rodrigo, 10 from Szoboszlai, 12 from Sunset. It almost looks like we might need to strengthen the defence up a bit more going into season 4. And going into season 4, we've got 73 million in the transfer budget. We've got 476,000 in the wage budget. So we might have some room to manoeuvre as far as that's concerned as well. So season 4 didn't see an awful lot of action in the transfer market. Certainly no money spent and very little money came in. Endo and Tsimikas left at the end of the free transfers. Basetic went for 2.1 million to Nottingham Forest. And all we did was bring in free transfers. So firstly, Roger Ibanez came in at the end of his contract in Saudi Arabia, another centre-half, just to add a bit of depth behind Diamande and De Ligt. We then picked up Miguel Gutierrez at the end of his contract with Girona at left-back. Andy Robertson's getting on now, and Gutierrez is only 26. Plenty of room to still develop as well, and can get forward down that left-hand side. And then we've added Kvicha Kvaratskhelia at the end of his contract with Napoli. Can play on the left, can play through the middle. We probably didn't need him, but given his quality, it seemed a bit of a no-brainer to add him and just try and figure out a way to fit him into the team. Starting season 4, we've decided to try and solidify the team a bit more. I think we were conceding too many goals, so we've gone with a formation that worked well in the save we did with Motherwell, with a flat 3 in the centre of midfield, of a 4-3-3 rather than a defensive midfielder. Whether it works or not, we'll obviously find out as the season goes on. As far as the season preview is concerned, we're actually now favourites to win the title. We've got 2 players in the Media Dream 11 in Roger Ibanez and Moritz Kjærgaard, but we haven't exactly had the best of starts to the season. So opening day of the season, Ibanez got sent off after 6 minutes, and we needed a Kvaratskhelia equaliser at the start of the second half to get a 1-1 draw against Newcastle. We then went away to Tottenham and had Andy Robertson sent off and got hammered 3-0. We then went to Chelsea, home to Chelsea. We got a 1-1 draw, and then we had a pretty comfortable victory over Crystal Palace. A couple of goals for Kjærgaard, 1 for Salah and 1 for Trent Alexander-Arnold. We then, for the second season in a row, went out of the League Cup at the third round stage on penalties. But in the most recent league game, we managed to beat Man City 4-3. A real pretty wild game. Hat-trick from Rodrigo, own goal from Ibanez. They've got Jamal Musiala to add to Phil Foden and the talent that they've got. So I certainly don't think Man City are going to finish outside the Champions League places again. It does mean that at the start of the season, we've won 2, drawn 2, and lost 1 of the opening 5 league games of the season. We've got 8 points out of a possible 15. Not the best of starts, but hopefully we can pick up in the second half of the season. So, not the best of starts of the season there, but let's simulate the rest of season 4 and see if we can go one better than we did last season and finally win another league title. And there we are. That is much, much more like it. We've ended up Premier League champions. We won the title by 7 points. Rodrigo and Kjærgaard, the two highest average ratings. Lautaro Martinez, the third top goal scorer. We only lost 4 games all season. Looking at the past positions, obviously we knew we hadn't started the season very well. We did pick up a bit, and then we hit the top after 11 games of the season and never looked back. Champions League, we did pretty well in the league phase. We lost 1 game, drew 1, won 6. So we beat Young Boys, we beat Midtjylland, we beat Inter, Partizan, West Ham. We hammered Bayern Munich. We drew with Leverkusen, and we lost away at Napoli. In the last 16, we beat Roma 5-1 on aggregate. Quarter-final, we beat Leipzig 7-2 on aggregate. Before the semi-final, we got knocked out 5-4 on aggregate. We lost the first leg 3-0, won the second leg 4-2. It just wasn't enough to see us through. And when you look at the individual player stats and you see that they've got Vinicius Jr., they've got Victor Osimhen, they've got Alphonso Davies, it makes sense that they're such a strong team. They did go on and win the trophy after extra time, but that's 3 seasons in a row that Real Madrid have knocked us out of the Champions League. Obviously, we'd already seen that we'd been knocked out of the League Cup by Tottenham on penalties. And then the FA Cup. 3rd round, we beat Birmingham 3-1. 4th round, we hammered Tranmere 6-1. We beat Newcastle 2-0 in the 5th round. We hammered Cardiff 6-0 in the quarter-final. We beat Chelsea 2-1 in the semi-final before we got beat 2 Aston Villa with a 90th minute winner from Marcus Edwards in the final. But overall, making it to the final of the FA Cup, getting to the semi-finals of the Champions League, the furthest we've got since we won the competition in the first season, and then obviously winning the Premier League trophy, we have to class that as a successful season given where Season 2 and Season 3 went. Lautaro Martinez top scored with 34 goals. Kjærgaard has been an outstanding signing, 23 goals, 14 assists this season. Rodrigo with 21 and 15. Kvaratskhelia with 19 and 13. Gyökeres still popped up with 16 goals despite only starting 10 games. Salah with 15 goals and 14 assists from 30 starts with 24 sub-appearances. And Szoboszlai with 12 goals and 19 assists. Going into the 5th and final season of this rebuild, we've got 70 million in the bank again to spend, 422,000 in the wage budget. So a bit of room to bring some new players in. And let's see if we can retain the title in Season 5. Going into Season 5, we've had some players leave at the end of the contracts in Gakpo and Salah. Andy Robertson's getting on a bit, so he's left as well. All 3 gone to Saudi Arabia. And then in terms of the incomings, we picked up Furman at the end of his contract with Barcelona. He had a season on loan at Arsenal, and then we've just picked him up on a free just to add some depth in central midfield and behind the front man. We've then picked up David Martinez again, just for depth in the 3 roles behind the front man. Venezuelan, signed from LAFC, only 22. Probably more a bit part player in this final season of the rebuild. And then the big money signing of the summer, we signed Gavi from Barcelona, can play in centre midfield, can play behind the front man, at a push can play in the defensive midfield role as well. And this season we've gone away from the flat 4-3-3 that we played last season. We've gone back to the 4-3-3 with a defensive midfielder. And when we pick the best 11, Gavi goes straight into the team. Diamande misses out, or Diamande goes into the defensive midfield role. Rather strangely, Kjærgaard misses out, who's been the best player for the last couple of seasons. Sanset's not in the team either. There's plenty of depth that we can rotate the team, hopefully, as the season goes on as well. Looking at the season preview, obviously we are defending champions. We are favourites for the title again. We've got 2 players in the Media Dream 11. Lautaro Martinez, and bearing in mind he wasn't getting picked in the best 11, Kjærgaard. And we've had a pretty decent start to the season. So opening day of the season, we hammered Man United 3-0 at home. We went away to Crystal Palace and won 1-0. We lost 1-0 away at Tottenham. And then we hammered Leeds 6-0 at home. And we hammered Barnsley 5-1 in the 3rd round of the League Cup. Champions League this season, I think we've had a pretty tough draw of games. I mean, the first 6 games, Man City, Milan, Marseille, Leverkusen, Inter, Atletico, are pretty difficult on paper. So there may be a chance that this season we don't make it direct into the last 16 and we have to go through the knockout playoff round. But let's go ahead and simulate season 5, the 5th and final season of the rebuild, and see if we can retain our league title. And there we have it. I think a fairly successful season. We've managed to retain our league title. We've won the Carabao Cup. We'd won the Community Shield, which we didn't see earlier on. We won 2-0 against Aston Villa in that. Kiergaard, joint top average rating. Lautaro Martinez, second top scorer with 17. We've lost a couple of games more than we did last season, but we've ended up as champions for the second successive season. Looking at the past positions, we've been top since the 5th game of the season and never relinquished the top spot from that point on. We've sort of steamrolled the league this season. Champions League, the league phase went better than we feared. We ended up finishing 7th, so we made it straight through to the last 16. We beat Dinamo Kiev. We put 13 past Ferencváros. We beat Leverkusen, Milan, and we hammered Man City at home. We drew with Atletico, and we lost away at Inter and Marseille. But in the round of 16, we ran into Barcelona. We lost 3-0 in the first leg. We won the second leg 1-0, and we went out 3-1 on aggregate. FA Cup, we went out at the first point of asking. We got hammered 4-0 by Arsenal. And then the Carabao Cup, obviously we beat Barnsley 5-1 in the third round. The fourth round, we knocked out Southampton 2-1. The quarter-final, we needed penalties to see off Newcastle. The semi-final, we beat West Ham 5-2 on aggregate. And in the final, we beat Chelsea 3-1. An early goal from Szoboszlai and Ansu Fati equalised for Chelsea on half-time. And then Rodrigo and Lautaro Martinez with goals in the second half to see us secure the League Cup. And looking at the play stats, Lautaro Martinez again with more than 20 goals, 25 goals this season. Kiergaard with 19. Kvaratskhelia with 15 and 12 assists. Szoboszlai with 15 and 11 assists. Gavi with 13 and 15 assists. Rodrigo with 13 and 12 assists. And Sanset also in double figures for goals and assists. And there we have it. I think overall, you have to say that's a pretty successful 5 seasons. It's always tough taking over after a long-term manager has left the club. We've managed to finish in the top 2, 4 seasons out of 5. We've won 2 league titles in a row. It's actually one more title than Klopp managed in his whole time at Liverpool. We started the save off by winning the FA Cup and the Champions League. And then we added the League Cup in the final season along with the Premier League and the Community Shield as well. So we've picked up 6 trophies along the way. As we said, obviously it's difficult taking over from a long-term manager. So it'll be interesting to see what effect Arne Slot has when he takes over at Liverpool for next season. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you for the next rebuild.